Why life after 70 doesn't depend on friends. 6 keys to true happiness and independence. Hey there, my friends. I hope you're doing well today. I want to start by asking, where are you listening from right now? Are you in the city, surrounded by the hustle and bustle? Or are you somewhere quieter, perhaps with a view of the trees or the ocean? Wherever you are, I'd love to know. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. It's always nice to feel connected across the miles. Now, I'm sure some of you might be wondering, does life after 70 depend on having a wide circle of friends? Or is there another secret to happiness and independence in our later years? Well, today, I'm going to take you on a journey through the 6 keys to unlocking true happiness and independence after 70. And I promise you, it's not about having a massive social network. But before we get into it, I want you to stick with me until the end of this episode. Trust me, you'll want to hear these insights. So go ahead and make sure you're subscribed to the Senior Wisdom channel, and don't forget to tap that notification bell. You won't want to miss any of the wisdom I'll be sharing with you today. Now, let's dive into it. You know, when I was younger, I always thought that happiness in my later years was going to be tied to my social life. I thought if I had a lot of friends around me, I'd always be happy. But as the years passed, I realized something incredibly important. True happiness and independence in our golden years don't necessarily depend on having an extensive group of friends. It depends on something much deeper. And I know that may sound a little surprising, doesn't it? Especially when we often hear that the key to happiness is socializing, meeting new people, and keeping up with friendships. I used to think that myself. But here's the thing I learned as I got older: happiness is something we cultivate from within. And that's something I want to share with you today. But before I continue, I want to ask you, how many of you have found yourself thinking, I wish I had more friends? Maybe you're feeling a little lonely or disconnected, especially now when everything seems to be moving at a faster pace. If you're nodding along, I totally get it. But I want you to stick around, because I'll be offering a fresh perspective that might just change how you think about your own happiness and independence as you age. Alright, I'm getting ahead of myself. But here's a quick reminder, don't forget to comment below. I want to know what you think. Do you believe your happiness depends on the friendships you keep? Or do you think there's more to it? Drop your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you. Now let me take you on a little journey of my own experience. A few years ago, I would have said that having a circle of friends was crucial to feeling fulfilled. I used to host dinner parties, go out for coffee dates, and keep up with friends on social media. But over time, as I reached my 70s, I started to realize something profound. I began to notice that the times I felt the happiest weren't when I was surrounded by a crowd of people, but when I was alone, savoring a quiet moment with a cup of tea, or reflecting on the simple joys of life. I also started asking myself, what does it really mean to be independent? Because honestly, there's more to it than just not relying on friends. Independence comes from within. It's about being at peace with who you are, having a sense of purpose, and finding joy in your daily routines, whether you're alone or with others. And that, my friends, is exactly what I'm here to talk to you about today. I'm going to share with you 6 keys that will help you create your own happiness and independence after 70. But before we dive deeper, let's take a quick pause. Have you subscribed to the channel yet? If not, now's a great time to do so. I want to be sure you don't miss out on any of the practical advice and insights I share here every week. Just hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell, so you're always in the loop. Alright, now that we're all set, let's dive into the first key to finding happiness and independence in our later years. Alright, now that we've set the stage, let's dive into the first key to happiness and independence after 70. Embracing self-reliance. Now, I know what you're thinking. Self-reliance. But Emily, isn't life about connecting with others? Doesn't it depend on the friendships we keep? Trust me, I used to think that way too. I spent a lot of my younger years believing that the more friends I had, the happier I would be. But as time went on and I reached my 70s, I began to realize that happiness doesn't come from the number of people around you, it comes from within. You see, when we're younger, it's easy to rely on our friends, our families, our social lives for happiness. But as we age, there comes a point where we realize that the key to feeling fulfilled and independent lies within ourselves. It's about creating our own sense of joy, our own peace, and embracing the freedom that comes with self-reliance. Let me share a bit of my story with you. A few years ago, I found myself in a place where I was surrounded by people, yet I didn't feel truly fulfilled. I had friends, I had family, but I realized I was relying too much on them for my happiness. I thought that if I wasn't busy socializing or going out with people, I'd feel lonely or disconnected. And for a while, I did. But as I entered my 70s, something shifted. I started to understand that I didn't need to be surrounded by a crowd to feel happy. It was around this time that I started embracing self-reliance more fully, and let me tell you, it was life-changing. The first step I took was to start small. I took up painting. Now, I'm no artist by any means. But I had always wanted to try it, and I realized that it didn't matter whether I was good at it. What mattered was that I was doing it for myself, not for anyone else. The process of painting became my own little world. A world where I could lose myself in the colors, the brushstrokes, and the creative process. It gave me a sense of independence and accomplishment I hadn't expected. And in those quiet moments, when it was just me and my thoughts, I found a new sense of peace. It wasn't just about painting, though. It was about embracing new things, learning new skills, and realizing that I could be happy in my own company. I started setting small goals for myself, whether it was walking a bit farther each day or finishing a book I had started months ago. These little things gave me a sense of purpose and control. And slowly, I began to feel more self-reliant, more content, and more empowered. Now let's pause for a moment. How about you? Have you taken up any new hobbies or learned any new skills recently? I'd love to hear about it. Share your experiences in the comments below. I truly believe that learning something new, no matter how small, can bring so much joy and fulfillment. And while you're at it, if you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Senior Wisdom channel if you haven't already. It means so much, and you'll be the first to know when new episodes come out. Now, let's get back to self-reliance. I want to emphasize that it's not just about being physically independent, it's also about finding emotional independence. It's about taking responsibility for your own happiness and not relying on others to fill that space. I'm not saying that friends and family don't play an important role in our lives, they absolutely do. But true independence comes from within. For example, let's talk about setting goals. As we get older, it's easy to feel like we've done everything, like we've checked off all the boxes. But there's always room for growth. Setting small, manageable goals, whether it's something as simple as getting outside for a daily walk, or reading a chapter of a book you've been meaning to finish, gives us a sense of direction and achievement. These little wins help us feel like we're still moving forward, still growing. I know that as we age, the temptation is to slow down, to let go of the things we used to enjoy. But in reality, those little goals, those moments of challenge, are what keep us feeling alive and engaged. It doesn't have to be a big accomplishment. It just needs to be something that makes you feel like you're moving in the right direction. So what can you do today to embrace more self-reliance in your life? Maybe it's something as simple as setting a small goal for yourself or picking up a new hobby. Whatever it is, take that first step. I promise you, it'll be worth it. Before we continue with the next key, I want to ask you again, how are you embracing self-reliance in your life? Are you challenging yourself to learn something new or setting personal goals? Drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. And remember, don't go anywhere, stick with me to the end of this episode, because the next key to happiness is just as important. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so now and tap that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Alright, let's continue and move on to the next key to unlocking happiness and independence after 70. Alright, friends, now that we've touched on the first key to happiness, self-reliance, it's time to move on to the second key, and I think this one is just as important. We're going to talk about staying physically active. Now, I know that as we get older, it can sometimes feel like our bodies aren't quite what they used to be. Maybe your knees ache a little more, or you don't have the same energy you had in your youth. But I want to tell you something that I've learned over the years: keeping your body moving is one of the most powerful ways to maintain your happiness, health, and independence as you age. Let me share a story with you. A few years ago, I realized that I had started to slow down more than I wanted to. I wasn't moving as much, and I noticed that I felt a little more sluggish. I was still doing the things I loved, like reading, spending time with family, and painting, but I had stopped taking daily walks. And let me tell you, I didn't realize how much that small habit had impacted my energy and overall well-being until I stopped doing it. One day, I decided to take a walk around my neighborhood. I hadn't done it in months, and at first, I thought, maybe I'll just take it easy today. But you know what? After about 10 minutes, I could feel my body waking up. The fresh air, the rhythm of my footsteps, the sun on my face, it all made me feel alive in a way I hadn't realized I missed. I finished that walk feeling so much better than I had in days. It was like a light bulb went off in my mind. Moving my body, even in small ways, made a huge difference. That's when I started making physical activity a daily habit again. I didn't start with anything too intense. At first, it was just short walks around the block, and then it grew from there. A few weeks later, I began taking longer walks, even adding some gentle stretching and light exercises at home. And I've got to tell you, my friends, those small efforts added up. Not only did I feel better physically, but my mood improved too. Exercise releases endorphins, those feel-good hormones, and I found that the more I moved, the happier and more energized I felt. Now, I want to ask you, have you noticed how your body feels when you don't move as much? Maybe you felt more tired or even a little more down. If you've experienced this, I'd love for you to share it in the comments. Let's talk about how movement affects our lives, especially as we get older. I know some of you may be thinking, I'm not an athlete. I can't do intense workouts anymore. And that's okay. You don't need to run marathons or lift heavy weights to benefit from physical activity. The key is to find what works for you. Maybe it's taking a short walk every day, or doing some light yoga, or even dancing to your favorite music in the living room. When I talk about staying active, I'm not talking about intense exercise routines. I'm talking about keeping your body moving in a way that feels good and comfortable for you. And the best part is, you don't have to do it alone. If you can find a friend or family member to walk with you, even better. But if not, it's still a fantastic habit to build. And here's something I've noticed: when you start moving your body, you begin to feel more confident in what it can do. I remember when I first started walking again, I felt a little self-conscious at first, wondering if people would think I was too slow or too out of shape. But over time, I stopped worrying about what others thought and started focusing on how good it felt to be outside, breathing in fresh air, and feeling my body get stronger day by day. So, if you haven't been moving as much lately, I challenge you to start small. Take a walk around the block today, or try some light stretches in the morning. You'll be surprised at how much better you feel afterward. And, of course, if you're enjoying these tips so far, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who might benefit from it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so right now, so you can keep receiving all the wisdom and advice that I'll be sharing with you. Now, let's talk about how staying physically active affects not just our bodies, but our minds too. As we get older, it can be easy to feel like we're past our prime or like our bodies are letting us down. But staying active can have a profound impact on our mental health. Exercise isn't just good for the body, it's good for the mind, too. Studies have shown that regular physical activity can reduce the risk of depression and anxiety, improve cognitive function, and boost overall mood. I can tell you from my own experience that when I make time for exercise, even just 20 minutes of movement a day, it's like a reset for my mental state. It helps me feel more clear-headed, more focused, and just generally more upbeat. For example, there's something about taking a walk in nature that makes everything feel a little brighter. The sounds of birds chirping, the sight of flowers blooming, it all reminds me that there's so much beauty in the world, even when things feel uncertain or challenging. Exercise also helps with sleep, which, let's be honest, can sometimes be a struggle as we get older. When I stay active during the day, I sleep better at night. And when I sleep well, I feel more energized and ready to take on the next day. It's a cycle that builds on itself, and the more you move, the more you'll want to move. So, my friends, don't underestimate the power of staying physically active. Whether it's a walk, a swim, or even gentle stretching, keeping your body moving will help you feel more energized, more positive, and more independent. And before we move on to the next key, I want to hear from you. What's your favorite way to stay active? Do you have a favorite activity that helps you feel your best? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the Senior Wisdom channel so you don't miss out on the rest of these keys to happiness. I've got more wisdom coming your way, so stick with me. Alright, let's move on to the third key to finding true happiness and independence after 70. But before we get there, take a moment to stretch, move around, and remember, keeping active is not just about the physical benefits. It's about how it makes us feel inside too. So, let's keep moving forward, together. Now that we've talked about staying active, let's move on to the third key to true happiness and independence in our later years, engaging in lifelong learning. I can already hear some of you thinking, Emily, lifelong learning sounds great, but I'm not in school anymore. I get it, I really do. But lifelong learning isn't just about hitting the books or going back to a classroom. It's about nurturing your curiosity, staying mentally sharp, and exploring new ideas or activities that keep your mind engaged. For me, embracing lifelong learning has been one of the most rewarding parts of growing older. I used to think that once I reached a certain age, I would have learned all I needed to know. But let me tell you, friends, I could not have been more wrong. The truth is, there's always something new to learn, no matter how old we are. A few years ago, I decided to take up photography. It wasn't something I had ever considered before, but I had always been fascinated by the way photos can capture moments and tell stories. I started with just a basic camera, and to be honest, at first, I didn't even know how to use it properly. I had to learn about lighting, composition, and even editing my photos. It was a challenge, but also so much fun. And you know what? I found myself looking at the world differently. Everything around me seemed more vibrant, more interesting, and I was constantly seeing things I never noticed before. This is the beauty of lifelong learning. It can take you in unexpected directions and help you rediscover a world that may have felt familiar but suddenly feels full of possibility again. Whether it's picking up a new hobby, learning a new skill, or even exploring topics that interest you online, the act of learning keeps your mind active and curious, and it brings a sense of fulfillment that's hard to match. And here's something really important I've learned over time: lifelong learning doesn't have to be intimidating. It doesn't require big commitments or drastic changes. It can be as simple as reading a book you've been meaning to get to, taking an online course about something that piques your interest, or even listening to podcasts that challenge your thinking. And it doesn't matter if it's something related to a career or not. What matters is that you're keeping your brain engaged, flexible, and ready for whatever comes next. For example, I've been exploring some online courses lately. A few months ago, I decided to learn more about the history of art. I've always been interested in it, but I never had the time to dive deep into it when I was busy with work and family. Now that I have more time, I'm amazed at how much there is to discover. I'm not doing it for a degree or certification. I'm doing it because it brings me joy and keeps me mentally active. It's easy to feel like we should slow down or even stop learning as we age. But I can promise you, keeping your mind engaged is one of the best ways to feel vibrant and connected to the world around you. It keeps you sharp, and it helps you stay curious, which is something that adds so much to life. I know that when I started embracing this idea, it felt a little intimidating. I wasn't sure if I could learn something new, or if I'd be good at it. But here's the thing, it's not about being good at it. It's about enjoying the process, staying curious, and allowing yourself the space to grow, no matter your age. I've learned so much in just the past few years, and every bit of new knowledge feels like a treasure. Now, let me ask you, what's something you've always wanted to learn or explore? Maybe it's a language, a craft, or even a deep dive into a subject you're passionate about. I'd love to hear from you. Share what you've been curious about in the comments below. Let's inspire each other to keep learning, no matter where we are in life. And speaking of inspiring each other, if you haven't subscribed to the Senior Wisdom channel yet, now's the time. I have so much more to share with you, and you won't want to miss out on all the valuable insights and stories coming your way. Now, back to lifelong learning. Another benefit I've found is that it keeps you socially engaged in a different way. When you start learning new things, you naturally start conversations about them with others. You may find yourself discussing a new book or a new idea with a friend, or maybe sharing what you've learned with family. It creates connection, not just with the material you're studying, but with the people around you as well. And those interactions, those exchanges of ideas, can be just as fulfilling as any social gathering. And don't worry if you don't have a huge group of friends to discuss these things with. The beauty of learning in this day and age is that we have access to so many online communities where we can connect with others who share our interests. Whether it's a book club, a language exchange group, or a forum about photography, there are endless ways to engage with people around the world, even from the comfort of your own home. Lifelong learning also helps you stay adaptable. The world is changing rapidly, and it's easy to feel like things are moving too fast. But when you continue to learn, you keep your mind open to new ideas and different ways of doing things. This adaptability helps you stay independent because you're not stuck in old ways of thinking. You're constantly evolving, just like the world around you. So, what do you say, friends? Are you ready to embrace lifelong learning? Whether you start small with a new hobby or dive deep into a subject you've always loved, I promise you, it will be worth it. The journey of learning is endless, and the rewards are rich and fulfilling. Before we move on to the next key, I want to remind you to stick with me through the rest of this video. There's so much more I'm going to share with you, and I don't want you to miss a thing. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Senior Wisdom channel. The more we grow this community, the more we can share together. Alright, now let's move on to the next key to true happiness and independence in our golden years. Now, we've covered so much already, haven't we? We've talked about the importance of self-reliance, how to stay physically active, and why lifelong learning is such a gift we can give ourselves as we age. These are all keys to unlocking happiness and independence, but I want to take a moment to discuss something just as important: cultivating a positive mindset. As we grow older, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, "It's too late for me," or "I'm past my prime." Maybe you've caught yourself saying that, even if just in passing. Trust me, I've been there. It's easy to start looking at the world around us and think that the best parts of life have already passed. But here's the thing I've learned: a positive mindset is the key to seeing every day as a new opportunity, no matter how old we are. You see, as we get older, life throws its challenges at us. We deal with health changes, maybe even the loss of loved ones, or the reality that we can't do everything we once did. It can be easy to get discouraged, to focus on what we've lost or what we can no longer do. But here's where the power of positivity comes in. It's not about ignoring the challenges we face, but about choosing to focus on the opportunities and joys that are still there. Let me share an experience with you. A few months ago, I was dealing with some health issues that made me feel discouraged. I didn't have the energy I was used to, and it felt like every day was a bit of a struggle. I caught myself thinking, I wish I were more like I used to be. But then, something shifted. I decided to stop focusing on what I couldn't do and started focusing on what I could do. I began waking up each day with a little gratitude practice. I would take a moment in the morning to reflect on something I was thankful for, whether it was a beautiful sunrise, a hot cup of coffee, or even just the fact that I was able to get out of bed and start my day. It wasn't always easy, but over time, I noticed a change in my mindset. Instead of feeling frustrated about the things I couldn't do, I felt grateful for what I could. And let me tell you, when you start your day with a positive thought, it sets the tone for the rest of it. That doesn't mean you won't have hard days, you will, and that's okay. But with a positive mindset, you're able to navigate those tough moments with a little more grace, a little more patience with yourself. Now, I want to ask you, have you ever tried a simple gratitude practice? Maybe it's something small, like listing 3 things you're thankful for each morning. Or perhaps it's taking a moment during the day to appreciate the little things, like the warmth of the sun on your face or the sound of birds outside your window. If you've tried it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences with me in the comments below. I truly believe that sharing these little practices can help us all stay positive together. And if you're finding this content helpful, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who might benefit, and subscribe to the Senior Wisdom channel so you can continue to receive more of these tips and insights. I'm so glad you're here with me today, and I don't want you to miss any future episodes. Another part of cultivating a positive mindset is how we speak to ourselves. You've probably heard the saying, "You are your own biggest critic." But have you ever stopped to think about how that critic might be affecting you? As we age, it's so easy to start judging ourselves. Maybe we're not as quick as we used to be, or we don't look the way we did years ago. But what I've learned is this: be kind to yourself. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to a friend. If a friend came to you feeling down, you wouldn't tear them apart. You'd lift them up, right? So why not do the same for yourself? I'll be honest, this is something I still work on. It's not always easy to be kind to myself, especially when I catch myself comparing where I am now to where I used to be. But over time, I've learned that the more I practice self-compassion, the more it becomes a habit. And it's made such a difference in my life. And here's something I really want you to hear: your worth doesn't come from how much you do or how you look, it comes from who you are, right now, in this moment. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, least of all yourself. Every day that you wake up and show up for yourself is an accomplishment. Now, before we wrap up, I want to recap what we've learned today. We've talked about 5 keys to finding happiness and independence after 70. Self-reliance, finding strength from within and creating a sense of independence through learning new skills and setting personal goals. Staying physically active, keeping your body moving, whether it's through walking, stretching, or gentle exercise, to stay healthy and energized. Lifelong learning, continuing to grow and challenge your mind through hobbies, courses, or new experiences, no matter your age. Positive mindset, focusing on gratitude, practicing self-compassion, and choosing to see the joy in each day. And the most important thing, never stop believing that you can live a fulfilling life, no matter your age. As we finish up today's episode, I just want to thank you for joining me. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate you spending it with me here. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with someone who might need to hear this message, and don't forget to subscribe to the Senior Wisdom channel so you can continue this journey with me. And remember, true happiness doesn't depend on the number of friends you have or how much you do. It's about what you do for yourself, the mindset you choose, and the way you embrace each new day. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode. Stay well, stay happy, and keep living with purpose.